All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to welcome you all this evening to the first kickoff meeting of the City of Goodlettsville's comprehensive land use master plan rewrite. Many of you all know back in December, the City Commission put the City of Goodlettsville, approved a moratorium for up to 12 months. And the purpose of that was to basically press the pause button to make sure that we're heading into the future that our elected officials and our residents all wanted. So this evening, before we get started, I would like to recognize a few people. The first is our Mayor, Rusty Tennant, City Commissioner Cisco Gilmore, City Vice Mayor Jennifer Duncan, and City Commissioner Jesse Walker. And also here this evening is our Planning Commission member, Mr. Billy Barnfield. So there's a lot of work that has already gone into this plan, getting the first step out of the gate. And Mr. Adam McCormick, who is our Senior Director of Planning and Community Development, is managing that program, and I'm about to turn the microphone over to him. Also, Mr. Sean Falzer is working as a consultant with the program. Sean had spent 6 months with us at the end of 2024 doing a fellowship. So together, these two guys are working diligently and putting together a plan to carry us well into the future, not just what I want or what someone else wants, but what our community wants to see. So Adam, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, a little bit different. This is not a formal planning commission. It's not a formal meeting, so it's more of just like a study session kind of deal. And what we'll do, we'll go through our presentation, and then we'll allow you all, anybody who wants to speak in front of the board, we'll let you come up and speak at the mic. So basically, you want comments recorded, anything like that. We are live streaming on YouTube, but if you want your comments recorded, we'll put it on that. And then after that, we'll break up. We got 4 tables here to look at the map. If you got what question you want to talk one-on-one, more informal on that end. But we'll go ahead and get it kicked off. Comprehensive plan update. The City of Goodlettsville currently has a plan from 2005 that was adopted. Of course, a lot's changed in the 20 years. Have any of y'all ever been involved in a comprehensive plan process with a city or county? Okay, so we have one here. Comprehensive plans in Tennessee, a lot of our planning laws go back to the 1920s, so over 100 years now we've had planning commissions, comprehensive plans. And basically what it says is comprehensive plans are general guideline for the growth of the city. To the planning commission level, any kind of rezoning requests that come forward, that's kind of what they use as the basis for those decisions. It usually includes transportation, utilities, and definitely land use. So we'll go through this right quick. And I'll kick this off to Sean. He really oversaw the survey portion that we had close to 900 responses on. So we're going to go through recap those here in a minute, but we'll turn it over to him. So basically, we talked about number 2 there, the purpose of the plan. What we're doing, this is the first kickoff meeting. We'll have several. We'll actually have the next one April 28th. We'll have a little bit more. Goal would be April 28th, kind of give you some scenarios for the different development options. This is just to kind of listen, learn, go through the survey. The process, like Tim said, the moratorium was adopted in December. The goal is to have these plans adopted before that moratorium expires. So our goal is to have this ready for the Planning Commission formal review September, October period. And we'll have a schedule later in the presentation for you to see. So. Yes, one of the bases for the moratorium is the last couple of years we've had a lot of high-density development. People are concerned about that. We've had townhomes approved and 2 apartment complexes, 1 under construction on North Main Street. Since 2020, we permitted 600 housing units, 311 of those, and another 70 were apartments. So, we hadn't done a lot of single family, but we have seen more of the townhomes and the apartments. There's concern that our balance is going more toward high density rather than or high density rather than the single family community. So that's why the city in 24 adopted the moratorium, which is what we're here tonight talking about. The comprehensive plan. High density will be one of many things we'll talk about. The purpose of the plan really is just a guideline to serve how we feel like the city wants to grow our community vision. Goodlettsville is a unique community in that majority of our city limits is built out, except for some of the larger property areas where there's limited utilities, and we have issues with floodplains and steep slopes. So we're different than your Galtons and White Houses that have a lot of land for the suburban growth, and we're limited in metro portion of the city. We can't really expand our city limits due to the original agreement when they did the metropolitan form of government. Sumner County, we have a growth boundary. We're sandwiched between Millersville and Hendersonville. We go up Long Hollow Pike to Center Point, Happy Hollow, but a lot of the property, if y'all have seen it, it's kind of challenging. There's a lot of steep slopes. There's limited utilities in that area. And the goal of this, we're 20 years into our current plan, so we feel like it's time to address that. We've made some major changes to the plans in the last couple of years. We expanded commercial out Long Hollow Pike, across from Caldwell Square there, and then we did the Rivergate Mall mixed use kind of deal similar to Metro Nashville, which is the basis for the Rivergate Mall redevelopment plans we're seeing at this time. Definitely the key parts of comprehensive plan was land use. That's what the properties can be used for, where we find high density be, where more commercial be. Environment, we do have the slope areas, the floodplains, where you want to preserve areas or do more lower density. Utilities, City of Goodlettsville operates sewer and stormwater. Sewer is limited in a large portion of the city, the Hit Lane area, and also Patton Branch and Madison Creek. Those are all basically without sewer, and that would really that's the big thing we do. Utilities, White House Utility on the Sumner County side and Madison Suburban are the water district providers. I've always been led to believe that really water is not a limitation. There's a lot of areas that don't have current mains to support growth. It would, those like City of Goodlettsville and the sewer, they expect those developments to do improvements to that. John, you want?
Thank you, Adam. Good evening, everyone. So now we'll go through some of the survey results. As Adam mentioned, we had really good participation, over 900 responses to the survey. It was open online for about a week to allow people to take that survey. We'll start with just a little bit about who took the survey. We did ask a couple of questions about how long people had been residents in Goodlettsville, where kind of generally they lived within the city limits, and then what age group they belonged to. And we tended to get residents that had lived here for longer. About 40% of the residents were here for more than 20 years, which is pretty impressive. Another 20% here for about 10 to 20 years. Another quarter of the respondents were here from 5 to 10 years, and then some of the newer residents, less than 5 years, about 15, made up 15% of respondents. And then that age group, fairly broken up between those in the 30 to 45, 46 to 59, and then 60 and above age range. A little bit lower in the younger demographic of 18 to 29, and didn't get any folks under the age of 18. So that might be an area where we can reach out to some of the younger groups as we go through this process. In terms of where the folks live within the region, so we kind of within the city, we kind of broke it up into the north of the Long Hollow Pike and then east or west of I-65. So about 27 or 28% in the northwest section of the city, 32% in the northeast, about 19 in the southwest, and 22% in the southeast. So a little bit greater participation on the north side of Long Hollow Pike, but a pretty good distribution. And so kind of starting with some of the first questions we had on the survey is, like, what do you like most about Goodlettsville? I think what was interesting is, we were able to look at some of the results across these different age groups and whether or not they'd lived here for a long time or are they fairly new residents. But I think as we go through some of these, there's a lot of consistency that you see of all the respondents kind of having a lot of the same priorities and common things that they liked or disliked about the city. So the small town feel was overwhelming top choice with more than 3/4 of respondents indicating that. We had more than 500 respondents also select proximity to Nashville and access to parks, recreation, and open space opportunities. And I think that kind of confirms a lot of what we've heard during the Parks Master Plan update of the parks and recreation opportunities being a source of pride and something that people even moved to Goodlettsville for. That was followed by low crime at 45%, and then towards the lower end is available retail and food services at 12%, quality of schools at 8%. A couple of various responses with other at 5%, and then 5% for housing opportunities. And I'll kind of summarize some of the other feedback that we heard towards the end, since that kind of got distributed throughout the different questions of things that were on people's mind that weren't necessarily a priority or a choice that they could identify. So kind of looking at the other side of the coin is what do you like least about Goodlettsville? Probably no surprise to some of you. Traffic congestion was the top choice, heavy favorite. Nearly 2/3 of respondents indicated that. Then more than half selected limited retail and food services. And then more than 40% indicated high-density residential housing as well. As we went down the line, lack of sidewalks at 29%, pace of growth and unkept properties in that low 20% range, and then limited transit options and stormwater in that 10 to 11% range, lack of open space, and then lack of housing options to follow. And I think for, just in seeing if there was any variation across the respondents, we did see that for some of the newer residents, that traffic congestion wasn't as high. There was limited retail and food services, I think, was the top choice for some of those newer residents, likely coming from areas where maybe they had more retail and food services. I think also lack of sidewalks was a higher priority amongst that group, which might be an indication too of coming from areas where they were able to walk to retail options and retail services. All right, as we move in to the next one, how would you rate the following aspects of quality of life? And so this one, we kind of had a sliding scale of poor, fair, good to excellent. And so once again, there was a little bit of redundancy in the choices for these, but in kind of identifying those that had a very high satisfaction level, you'll see parks and recreation and open space, 83% as good or excellent. Small town feel, 73% as good or excellent. Affordability, nearly 70% as good or excellent, as well as crime was up there and close to 67%. Housing options, lower 60% for that. And then started to drop off a little bit where stormwater and flooding issues, 48% identified as good or excellent. And then we kind of get to where there is more dissatisfaction with some of those towards the bottom. Employment opportunities, only 33% identified as good or excellent. Traffic congestion, that came up on the previous slide, only 12% as good or excellent. And then alternatives to driving, which sometimes the alternatives to traffic congestion, also towards the bottom of that list. All right, then we look into kind of some specifics about type of development. So this one focused on housing, the next one focused on kind of other types of development. And so how would you rate the availability of the following housing types in Goodlettsville? So we had, we need less of this housing? Are we satisfied with the current level of it, or do we need more? So there was a desire for more larger single-family lots, as well as senior and assisted living units. There's also, as you can see, less desire for apartments and townhouses, and also some desire for less smaller single-family lots. You see that in the blue. But for the single-family lots, there was strong satisfaction with some of the existing levels. Just about 30%, also identifying as needing less of the smaller lots. And then there was, I would say too, as we mentioned, the single family, you'll see the need more, just reiterating that single family larger lots, more than a third, indicating that we needed more of those larger lots, and also 35% indicating needing more senior and assisted living units. So then we move over into the other development. How would you rate the availability of the following development types? We had restaurants, commercial, mixed use, office, and industrial for this one. Same theme of are we satisfied, or we need less or more of this? Desire for new non-residential growth is focused on restaurants. That was a really common theme within the results of the survey. Generally satisfied with the amount of office and industrial space. And then there was an interest by about 28% for more commercial development, as well as 22% interest in more mixed-use development that you see in that gray bar. So kind of looking to the future now, we've identified some of the existing conditions and what we might need more of, less of. So what issues should be a priority to address moving forward into the future? Also, I had the option to select up to 3 for this survey response, and there was a strong desire to preserve neighborhood character and to mitigate traffic congestion. Those were both above 60% on this. Over 500 respondents indicated those options. Also, strong preference for preserving natural environment at 45%, and expanding parks, recreation, and open space at 30%. Also up there, I think that these two go a little bit hand in hand, just with spurring economic development and bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. There was a lot of talk about walkability, especially in the downtown, to access businesses. That followed it out with zoning and land use at 19%, addressing stormwater deficiencies at 15%, expanding transit service at 10%, and increasing housing options at 7%. So kind of the open-ended questions that didn't really fit within any of the survey responses, we allowed people an opportunity to air some other comments that they had on their mind. And so I think one of the common themes that came up, you'll see here, both within the survey and then also in some write-in comments, is a growing concern with the current level of apartments, as well as hotels within the city. Strong desire for local sit-down restaurants over fast casual chains or coffee shops that are a little bit quicker service, or you're in and out. There's a strong interest in a greater walkability, as I mentioned, especially referencing downtown and kind of the historic antique district, and a desire for redevelopment of some of the vacant buildings within the city. Also a concern with the current road conditions, worsening traffic congestion. I think this was especially a greater issue with residents that had been here for a long time and have probably seen and witnessed this traffic congestion worsen over the years. A support for preserving rural opportunities and open space, and also some mention of trees associated with that preservation of the environment. And then also a lot of comments just about the small town feel, the people. There was, I think, a lot of pride in Goodlettsville's small town feel, and the knowing your residents in the city, and kind of the character that that people, have come here for and what causes them to stay. So that kind of wraps up some of the survey responses. We want to take any questions on survey responses before we dig into some more data.
I have a quick question. And this is just, are you going to have this as a PowerPoint available for us to share? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is it already out there? Okay. We can.
And I'll give my card.
Yeah, or if it could just be posted somewhere in the city of Goodlettsville.
Okay.
Just, because I was thinking, I probably should have been taking pictures of these slides, but hopefully they'll just share.
Okay.
So I think kind of the theme of this, right, we're really early in this process, and so we're giving you a lot of information and really kind of setting the stage of gathering information from the residents and also gathering some data just on trends over time, particularly the last, since 2000 of, how has Goodlettsville changed? And so we're going to go through some data, focus on population, housing, income, just to give you a sense for, do your perceptions meet reality? How has, things changed? And, how do we kind of stack up in comparison to some of the cities that are around us or in Middle Tennessee? So start with, population. I think that's one that, looking at the growth since 2000, I know Middle Tennessee's growth has been explosive. Population increase for Goodlettsville has been from about 14,000 to about 18,000. Now, we're continuing to try and figure out what that number really is with the special census, but it's about a growing of 170 people a year on average over that 24-year time span, which is about 1.2% average annual growth. And so, that's fairly consistent with the state of Tennessee's average. If you look at that same period for some of the other cities in Middle Tennessee, they've experienced some higher growth rates. You'll see some of these at 5%, like Gallatin or White House or Franklin, and even some as high as Mount Juliet at 10%. And that's some pretty tremendous growth. And so just kind of keep those thoughts in mind as we kind of go through this, and we'll get into more questions about kind of what growth might look like in the future and what a comfort level might be within Goodlettsville. So then looking at income growth, kind of taking a similar look as, looking back since 2000, median household income has increased from approximately $46,000 to $66,000. And that average annual growth is about 1.8%, so a little bit higher than our population growth. And then as we kind of look at that red line in comparison to some of the others, you'll see those other cities, some of them have experienced higher rates of income growth, a couple that are close to 3%, and then some as high as close to 5%. I think that 5% is Gallatin, with Franklin pretty high up there at 4.3%. And so this, just keep this in context as we get into talking about housing and affordability. So if we look at home values, this is another one that, looking at since 2000, some significant growth in home values in the city of Goodlettsville. And median home values have increased from approximately $125,000 to nearly $400,000, about $390,000 in 2024. And those are pretty substantial gains. And I think one of the common themes that you'll see around the country and in Middle Tennessee is that a substantial gain between 2020 and 2024. There's a lot of factors that have contributed to that, not only people moving into the state, but also bringing money with them that is higher than some of the incomes that have been around in Middle Tennessee, but also some lower interest rate opportunities that are starting to taper off a little bit. And so I think this is one that's interesting, just given the recent impact and kind of issues that it might that we might need to grapple with as we go through this process. So we kind of look at that home value growth, which is about 8.6%. So we're talking, in population and incomes, we were much lower percentages, but especially with this growth since 2020, we're looking at home values growing closer to 8.5%, 9%. You'll see some of the communities on there that are even above 10%, and Franklin at 13%. So that's much faster rates than the income, right? And so one thing that we've looked at as well as part of this, and this is kind of the housing affordability from a home value to income comparison. And so, if you think most of the time through the 2000s and even up to, around 2015, that home value to income ratio was about 3. So if you had a $100,000 median income and your house was $300,000, then that was your ratio was about 3. So that was fairly common across a lot of parts of the country. Not all parts of the country, but pretty common in Middle Tennessee as well. But then as you look, through most of the 2000s, as you jump to around, that ratio jumps to around 4 by 2020, and now is closer to 5 for most cities by 2024, and even higher for select cities on this chart, such as Goodlettsville and Franklin. So I think that's one thing to keep in mind as we are getting into the future considerations and development trajectory for the city of Goodlettsville. And I think another one that, obviously digging into this, we could have some deep discussions, but Adam had mentioned how a number of the developments over the past couple of years had been focused on multifamily housing. So about 85% of the developments over those past 4 years has been focused on multifamily. But also the number of developments has not been that high in comparison. So that might be another factor as we look at that housing affordability number, is if the supply is not going up as fast as in other cities, then maybe the supply and demand is driving up some of the home prices within the city. And then also just to kind of look on like the revenue side of things. And so property tax revenue, sales tax revenue has been strong over those years as well to fund city services. And we want to see that number continue to be healthy, just to, for robust revenue to fund city services. And I think, in just looking at that growth rate, it's been fairly consistent, especially I think sales tax revenue even exceeded $7 million for the first time this past year, which is great. Did you want to hit on known assets?
Definitely. Of course, our Parks and Rec, I think everybody, all the surveys, all the people that's here earlier at 5 o'clock really feel like, that's one of our best strong suits here. Small town feel, neighborhood character, as we saw, that was one of the things people wanted to preserve the most. Of course, one of the reasons why Goodlettsville kind of developed like it is, and it's such a great place to live, it is close to Nashville. A lot of people work down there. It's a real, I wouldn't really call it an inner ring suburb, but it's, it's real close, so that really helps. Relative affordability, like Sean was saying, the different levels, even though that is kind of being skewed here lately. Regional road network, we got 3 interstate exits, I-65, got multiple state highways that go through the city, carry a lot of traffic, so that's a benefit. There's a lot of roadway capacity and a lot of through traffic actually too. That kind of hurts our traffic congestion, because a lot of the traffic we deal with is people coming through our area. Constraints, limited area for development, like we talked about earlier. We've got a lot of topography issues, floodplains, sewer limitations, that impact a large area of the city. Increased demand for fire services. I know the city's looking at a possible second fire hall in the future, but our fire hall is one of the busiest in the area, so a lot of demand for that. And diminishing roadway capacity. Even though we got the great network, there's a lot of demand on that. So there's limited capacity on the roadway issues. Polling, what we'll do here, let's be informal. It's kind of a show of hands. This is kind of just to give some scenarios to think about. We'll probably address this a little bit more at the next meeting on April 28th, but just kind of go through. If you see one that kind of stands out, just show of hands. This isn't scientific or anything. We're just kind of getting the feel of the participants here. Tolerance for growth. I know that's kind of a loaded question, but just kind of see what your thoughts are. If we were kind of remain the same over the goal of this, the plan is look at the next kind of 20-year frame. You don't try to do more than that because it kind of gets where it's not effective. So in the next 20 years, do we feel like generally the goal is just to kind of goals will remain about the same population, which is around the 18,000? That generally people's feeling, or grow minimally, say if we're at 25,000. Okay. Some growth, but not too much. To grow moderately in the 30,000 range. All right, I think you're in the minority there, Brock. And to grow substantially, say 35,000. I think we thought probably Gallatin right now at this time. I'm sorry. Yeah, they went higher than that. So it sounds like everybody generally the idea of growth's not horrible, but don't want it to be too much. So. Preference for future growth. I would only accept if we do housing, new single family on larger lots. Is that kind of the thoughts everybody kind of going for?
1 acre lot.
B, I would accept new multifamily housing targeted for seniors, assisted living. Okay, got a handful of those, yeah. I would accept new housing if it expanded restaurant options. Okay. And of course the last, I would accept new multifamily housing. All right. Preference for growth areas. I would not accept new growth. So basically just kind of like it is. I would accept more intensive new growth, but with areas with extensive existing infrastructure. Okay. That's kind of like we see the mall area, the redevelopment of the mall. I mean, you got major highways around it, utilities, everything there for it. C, I would accept less intensive new growth in areas without existing infrastructure. So C kind of growth, but maybe in some areas that don't have the infrastructure to support it, but limited. Okay. And I would accept new growth in any area. Yeah. Tolerance for home prices. I would be willing to pay higher home prices, but to maintain that small town feel. Okay. And what that's about, if we're not regrowing, like Sean showed the growth of the tax rates and things, that's kind of always the debate on growth. If you're not growing, there's not new things happening, there's new revenue sources coming in, so it could mean higher taxes to eventually pay for the same level of services. So that's what that was saying, is it willing to pay more if we maintain just a small town feel with the limited growth. I would be willing to pay higher home prices to preserve open space. Okay, well. I would not be willing to pay higher home prices. I wish we could all say that, but I think that's unfortunate. Tolerance for property taxes. I would be willing, this is what I was just talking about a few minutes ago. I would be willing to pay higher property taxes to maintain the small town feel. If we have a limited growth, we really want that small town feel. I would be willing to pay higher property taxes to preserve open space. Does that become okay, well. I would be willing to support new growth and development if city property taxes remain low. Like the trade-off we talked about, if city keeps growing and it could help maintain the taxes. And I know that's a broad statement, but you see a lot of cities that have, our growth 1%, and you see your 10% Mount Juliet. That higher growth, there is a trade-off for it. I know there, but if our goal is to preserve open space, maintain the small field, there's that kind of trade-off for that. I would be willing to pay higher property taxes to invest in infrastructure to support new growth and development. Willingness to support tax incentives. This is more about commercial development because there was a lot of requests for restaurants. A lot of cities out there are doing new kind of different things to get your more beyond just the fast food, more your sit-down restaurant type. I would be willing to support tax incentives to lure new restaurants. So would that be something? I would be willing to support tax incentives to support new mixed-use development. All right. I would not support tax incentives to lure new restaurants. If y'all follow the local news, City of Lebanon, a couple years ago, I think it's $500,000 offered as incentive for a restaurant to come in. It was very controversial, but that was when you heard the mayor of Lebanon talk about it. He had the same questions come up to him. We want to see new restaurants, and they kind of put that out there to be aggressive about that. Next step, of course, tonight's this is our kickoff meeting. Our next one will be March 28th. So, I'm sorry, April 28th. It's another Monday night. Be about same time, 6 o'clock. What our goal is then to have some development options for you. Look at our city. You know, we got maps here. We'll talk about in a few minutes, but to kind of maybe talk about some options going forward based on what we got from the survey and the general thoughts here tonight. In May, we hope to have a study session with both Planning Commission and City Commission to review kind of the public comments and a draft outline. August, in September, we want to get into like formal study sessions. These are all public meetings, of course, where you can attend. Then our goal will be to have the formal review and adoption November to December timeframe, like we talked about earlier, in time for the moratorium. So what we'll do now, one quick thing. I think Judy Wheeler, Planning Commissioner, I think Tim forgot you, so we want to make sure that she's included. Any quick questions before we open up for public comments, or if y'all want to come speak?
The larger the city gets, the worse we have crime.
Okay.
Look at what is happening in Maxville.
Anybody else have any questions or comments before we get? Thank you. All right, what we'll do, if y'all want to come up and speak, like I said, we're recording this, so if you want to get your comments out for everybody to hear, we will have opportunities after that to do, if you want to come up, sit individually, look at the maps, talk to any of us, that's open. But we do have planning commissioners, city commissioners here, so that was the point of y'all's public comments, if you wanted to address them on that. Y'all have anything you want to say before we're, I'm sorry. Yeah, come on, you can come up and speak. That's fine. We can hear you.
How many of your 600 respondents were presently living in apartments or townhomes?
I don't think we limited that.
So that's a question that we wouldn't be able to answer. We didn't ask the type of residence that respondents were living in. So of the 900 respondents, we can, the three questions that we can kind of break down is, you know, how long they've lived here, what general area of the city that they're living in, and then the age group. But I think that you know, I think with some of the newer residents, based on what's been built here, some of the newer residents I think we can interpret are probably living in townhouses or apartments. So we can try and extrapolate from some of that survey data, but we can't tell you that particular answer.
It's going to then skew the response on what type of housing they want.
The goal was to make it very open where people feel comfortable to participate, where, you know, certain people didn't feel like they were being marked off if they didn't own property. So we kind of opened it to a majority. But just where the respondents were, I mean, those are primarily on Long Hollow Pike, north of Long Hollow Pike, a third of the city. I mean, there's really no multifamily out there, so it is more ownership. So we feel like we got some. I think that, just seeing the survey results, I think it geared toward more people in the home ownership, single family, probably filled out the survey, because there wasn't a lot of requests for more multifamily. So that's pretty striking against it. So, go ahead.
Yeah, my name's John Fan. I live on Moss Trail, so I live in Goodlettsville Heights, a legacy subdivision built in the 50s, 1 acre lot, brick homes. So my definition of moving forward, I think enough is enough with high-density housing. We've had it. I think moving forward, the key will be larger lots with single-family homes, and I'll define that as look at the legacy subdivision over on Moss Trail. The ideal density moving forward would be 1 acre lots. I feel it would solve a lot of problems. Number one, if you have 1 acre lots, you have less. You can have growth with 1 acre lots. You can have some growth with 1 acre lots, but you don't have the great number of people per acre. So you bring in less amount of people if you have the 1 acre lots. Also, too, I feel like that you'll bring in people with a tad higher income than you will apartment, and there goes your incentive for restaurants. We're not getting good restaurants here. It's not because restaurants don't know that there's Goodlettsville. It's because they're going to Hendersonville because the per capita income is higher. So you raise the per capita income, the family income, and you will get the sit-down restaurants that you want. You continue with multifamily housing, and you're going to get McDonald's and the fast foods. So you can, by a focus on single-family homes with larger lots, 1 acre lots, you can have some growth. You bring in less population on the property that you're trying to develop. You bring in people, in theory, you would bring in people with a little bit higher income that could support the kind of restaurants you want. Also, too, talking about sidewalks are generally neighborhoods. They're in neighborhoods. Like I lived in Old Hickory. That was a neighborhood. That's where there's front porches and sidewalks. You don't have that generally in high-density housing areas. It's not considered a neighborhood. People come in and they go, come in and they go. So if you want sidewalks, then you need to be thinking about a neighborhood. So you need to be thinking about Moss Trail and that kind of neighborhood with acre lots and single-family homes. So that's the direction I think we ought to go. Now, as far as revenue is concerned, Jesse's got it right with his focus on small business. That's where the revenue is going to come from. He's doing a lot of things, but there's a lot of things that can be done. We can do more with Small Business Saturday. When I walk around with a pocket of money to try and buy from small business here on Small Business Saturday, most of them don't know it's Small Business Saturday. They could, if they're not partnering with eBay, they could partner with eBay. eBay has a plan and a program for small business. Now, eBay deducts the sales tax, and they pay the sales tax. So anything that's sold on eBay, if it's shipped to Goodlettsville, Goodlettsville will get sales tax for that. So if these antique stores don't have their store on eBay, shame on them. My wife and I, we're retired now, but we've shipped hundreds and hundreds of packages out of our home. Our neighbors don't even know it. We don't talk about it. We sell most things in little boxes, and we ship it out of state. We don't try and pursue local business because we live in a residential subdivision. We don't want to cause our neighbors problems. But if I had a commercial establishment where I could do that, I would do that. So I think there's a lot of things that can be done, but I think small business is the revenue. The thing that killed growth in small towns is the state not allowing an impact fee for a home. When I lived in Mount Juliet, the solution, and this is the 80s, the solution to their problem, because you don't generate enough income from property taxes when a new residence moves in to cover the infrastructure addition that you'll need. So in the absence of an impact fee, and I'm not sure in today's world if you would need like a $10,000 impact fee. So in the absence of an impact fee, bringing in a new residential house or apartment or stuff, you're not gonna make enough money on property taxes to cover the expansion of infrastructure that's gonna need to take place when this town grows. So that's it. I just think we've had enough of high-density housing. Enough is enough. My definition of density is 1 acre lots, and that will solve a lot of the problems. That will get you the higher. And now, look, we have 1 acre lots over here on Moss Trail. That doesn't mean that there's young people not moving in. There are. The person that lives next door to me is a nurse at Vanderbilt. That's his American dream. He wanted a 1 acre lot, a bigger lot, a brick home with big trees and things like that. So we have a diverse group of people in our legacy subdivision. So it's not prohibitive. In fact, it may be one of the best kept secrets in town. The fact that you can buy a house over here in Moss Trail in that area, that subdivision, that may be one of the best kept secrets in town as far as affordability.
Yeah, I know when they come available, we get calls on them.
I do thank everybody for this meeting. It's a conversation that needs to happen, and I'm glad you guys are taking it on.
Well, thanks for your comments. Anybody else? Thank you. And you can say that there.
Like if you own a house here in Goodlettsville, you probably pay around $10,000 in property tax. If you live in an apartment, how does the city get, I'm just asking how does the city, or how do those people help pay for the schools? What is their?
Well, apartment complexes are typically commercial tax property. You know, their values usually pretty high on taxes. So the property owner does pay taxes. They usually pay it on a commercial rate.
I guess what would be a resident in an apartment versus compared to me? So I pay, I don't know, $2,000 or so. What would, if I lived in an apartment, what would my contribution to the city taxes basically?
Well, of course, they would pay sales tax. Tim, do you have any idea? Because apartments are paid on the whole property. You know, some of the. Oh, I mean, it depends on the value, because they are assessed a commercial rate. You know, residential assessed to 25%, they're assessed to 40%, and sometimes they're worth several million. So, Tim,
I mean, Adam just answered the question. They're based on, naturally, the property value's a lot more for the size of the property, but it's also assessed at 40% instead of 25%. The big question, and I think that's one of the things tonight, because we don't come tonight with answers right or wrong, is what is that median of how they two mash. So
and that's something. For the next meeting, we can give some examples, because they're not paid by individuals, but they do pay, of course, sales tax. Those uses.
I assume so, but you don't want to just rush to say we don't know multi-use or whatever.
Yes.
If there's some financial benefit of it, I'm struggling to understand, is it a financial benefit to the city or is it a burden to the city? That's what I was curious to understand.
Yeah, and that's we can give some examples. I mean, they do pay substantial property taxes just because their values, a lot of them, especially the newer stuff, is pretty high. So we can get you some examples. I mean, I can get what Vintage North Creek at the April meeting. I don't have it tonight, what they pay. Any other comment?
Good evening, Chris Pascarella. I'm not a resident of Goodlettsville, but we develop single-family and multifamily communities, so I might take a shot at answering your question, sir. Typically, on a per-unit basis, what we budget for based on the analysis of what the taxes are in each individual city ranges anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500 per apartment home. It will vary, but yeah, it's close. And what's an interesting point that's important to keep in mind, and we've done surveys across several communities in different places. We did one not too many years ago down in Williamson County in Franklin. And this has proven out to be the case over the long term. The interesting impact of apartments on schools is that the average 250-unit apartment community generally creates a school impact from K through 12 of anywhere from 8 to 15 children. Because the typical demographic just isn't a family demographic, even in Williamson County, where it has the strongest school district in the state. And that's partly because the majority of the floor plans are studios 1s and 2s, not a lot of 3s, certainly no 4s. So it's just not driven toward a homeowner profile. So the impact to the schools is you're spending a lot more money per unit or per student than the typical single family. In fact, there's an analysis that we did a long time ago that demonstrated that actually homes over a certain size that generate 2-3 kids actually create more burden on the school district than they send in tax revenue to the schools. And I guess just one other comment I would make on the comment of density. I think it's all about balance. We did statistical analysis using Adam's figures several months ago. And the city right now is really right in that equilibrium zone on the national basis. About 35% of the dwellings in Goodlettsville are multifamily rental versus 65% are single family. So I know that maybe there has been an upswell in development for multifamily in recent years, maybe not so much in single family, but statistically it is at equilibrium. Also the point about restaurants, the bottom line is that rooftops bring commercial development. It's just as simple as that. And rooftops can be single family, they can be multifamily. Unless the decision is made to start subsidizing or creating significant tax incentives to attract restaurants, I only go to a Mexican restaurant maybe 2 or 3 times a month, right? And I might not even go to the same one. If you have very low density, fewer homeowners, oftentimes those homeowners are more apt to cook at home and eat more nights at home than an apartment dweller who will maybe eat out more often. I don't have any statistics to support that, but I think that's just common sense. But what I will tell you is that if there's a perception that a Class A luxury apartment resident, like you have many here in Goodlettsville that have been developed recently, can't make enough money to support restaurants, that's just not true. Many of them make 6-figure incomes. They just choose, either because of their work habits, they may travel a lot, they just may want no maintenance, but they'll choose a townhome or an apartment from a lifestyle standpoint. Thank you.
To go back to your question, I'm just going to use vintage North Creek by Kroger's. Its appraised value is $14 million, almost $15 million. We can get you the whole calculation and what it provides in taxes, but that's just kind of give you an idea of the valuation of it. Go ahead, man.
Hello, my name is Connie Childress. I live on Maple Ridge Lane here in Goodlettsville. My husband and I have been residents here for over 30 years, and we chose Goodlettsville because of what Goodlettsville is, a small town, convenient to other things, and the people. Now, we didn't know that when we first moved in, but I can tell you now, our community, our neighborhood is a true neighborhood. We know our neighbors. And I just want to say that I'm urging you all to consider as you make decisions, not political things, not development things, how we're going to get money in here or restaurants. It's about our quality of life. And as we all know, living in this country now and how things have grown and how things have kind of went crazy in a lot of ways, if you lose that quality of life, you lose so much. So I'm asking you to think not just what looks good on paper or what might seem like a good idea to bring in a bunch of things, and rather think about the people who live here, who are committed to living here and have lived here a long time. And hopefully we will, I'm not saying no growth, hopefully we will bring other people in too that can contribute to our community. But please, think with your heart as well as your head, and let's continue to make this a place that I love to call home, and I'm proud to call home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mike McGinnis. I live at 144 North Windridge. Thank you for doing the survey and all this stuff. I don't hear very well, I apologize. How many respondents were there?
Over 900.
Over 900 or something? I didn't hear everything you said, but what kept coming back to me was the number of people that want sidewalks, they want walkability. So whatever development you decide to do in the future, I can't overemphasize enough the importance of sidewalks, walkability. It's what everyone is crying out for. The park survey of 1,148 people, the single largest thing people pointed out was walkability, being able to walk places. What prevents you from using the facilities? We can't walk to the parks and things like that. So Goodlettsville's done a good job thus far at incorporating this everywhere. I know I was talking to Tim earlier. I understand there's going to be 8-foot sidewalks as part of the Main Street thing. That's great. That's awesome. That's going to get me into town to want to walk between the businesses and things. And that's what needs to happen with development. I know the last couple subdivisions, there's sidewalks there. I was here listening to Mr. Patel talk when we were talking about Allen Farms, and he said, well, I don't think we'll ever see a sidewalk on Allen Road. I don't see why the heck not. Yeah, I understand it's a big hurdle to overcome, but if you started with a sidewalk from the new Allen Farms to Copper Creek, it's not the whole length of Allen Road, but it's a short distance. You've now connected two neighborhoods, and that's what the residents of Goodlettsville are crying out for. Walkability, accessibility, greenways, sidewalks. I'll die on this hill talking about it all night, but thank you.
Thank you. I did a rough calculation of 14.7 million on Metro Nashville, and that's about 170,000. Of course, that's primarily the school funds, and we'll do the city calculation for you too. So thank you. Yeah, sidewalks always rate well. The wise investment, definitely. And one thing about sidewalks, we do require them on new subdivisions, both sides of the streets. So larger lots, that's a substantial cost. Talking about acre lots, there's probably adding $20,000 to probably the lot development costs through sidewalks. But that's something the city requires with new developments going forward. The tricky part is connecting the existing roads, just due to the cost, open ditches. That can be a challenge sometimes. But I've never heard anybody say they don't want sidewalks. So.
Thank you. Just a couple comments based on some of the things I've heard tonight. I would encourage the city council to listen to the community when we come out. And I know you have, and we've been at several of the public meetings associated with new development, et cetera. But, it's my understanding that as the new developers and want to come in, we have expressed our opinions on that, and the Planning Commission Board has heard and voted on some of these things, and that will be brought up, I believe, at the next meeting on the developer coming back to see if we can basically do an end run on the decision to bypass what the Planning Commission has said.
You're talking about the one on Long Haul Pike?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So I just want to encourage the city to stand by their guns. The community has spoken out. A decision was made with regard to that, and I appreciate if we don't vacillate on those type of issues. Part of the issues there are infrastructure. A lot of new development in that area will stress the infrastructure on our roads and the sewage and electrical systems, probably more than the city is currently ready to encompass and contain. So Again, appreciate you standing by and listening to us, and we will be back at the next meeting to hear what everyone has to say and hopefully express our concerns associated with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got one more subject, probably not very popular, but I'll bring it up anyway. Is there any, it seems like a lot of, especially where we live, is going to rental properties. And, I respectfully want to disagree with this gentleman that builds apartments. If you don't own, if you don't have a vested interest in the community, in my opinion, is if you own the house. That's just, you're not going to make long-term investments, you're not going to upgrade the property. People, I think, that rent tend to not maintain the property at the level of the homeowner. I think that's pretty common knowledge. But, is there anything that the city has looked at to stem this flow? Because I think Goodlettsville, if you look at the responses, there were a lot of people that's lived 30 years in the community. Well, that means they're old like me, and as they pass away or their kids inherit the property, instead of selling it, they're renting it out now. It's happening all around us. And I just wonder if there's anything the city could do to address that. I don't have, I know y'all don't have to have the answer today, and I don't have an answer. I can come up with a bunch of suggestions, but it seems to be a problem that is going to only get worse.
It is going to get worse. I know the state of Tennessee legislator, there's a bill out there this year, I hadn't followed it, where it caps how many corporations can own in a neighborhood. A lot of our ability to do things in Tennessee is based on what the state law gives us. And fortunately, there's nothing that really says you can control who lives in the property. You can control the use of the property, things like that. Now, private homeowners associations, they can regulate that. I know we have several that do, but
The city can enact some pretty stringent property maintenance.
yes, that's definitely stuff we can do. But to say a property can't be rented, yeah.
Yeah, but you can enforce it. People aren't maintaining their
Yes, that's a property maintenance issue at that point, yes.
That's dealt with kind of code, you've got
Yeah.
real property and they're letting things happen. It could be addressed.
Yes,
The code depends upon neighbors, dropping the dime, the codes department taking the pick, and I was in the neighborhood association in Nashville, and so what we would do is we would take pictures and send it to code. Once that's done, because they don't know unless you let them know. So a lot of the problems with rental properties, not every one of them, but some can be dealt with codes department.
Yeah, a lot, that's an extreme case, but it's subtle in a lot of instances. It's just that they don't landscape, they don't paint, it's real, it's things that's subtle. And I just wondered if the city had, given that any thought as we move forward with this plan. To me, it seems like a problem. It's gonna be
The housing, you're going to see a lot more, I think nationwide with the cost of housing going up, like Sean was showing in relation to income, I think you're going to see a lot of owned properties by corporations and rental, even, your top neighborhoods. I think we're seeing that now. Definitely property maintenance. I see what you're saying. Property maintenance where the grass is 2 foot tall and got a car on blocks is one thing, but if all the paint's peeled off, it's interesting.
Adam, to that point, I know that Woodwind Hills at the end of Loretta, their HOA has enforced that. And how they go about doing that is it's a minimum of 2 years that you have to live in the house before it's able to be rented out. I know that's something I've thrown out to Mr. Ellis just to see if we can look into that. But I do. I agree. That's one of the things that I've heard from a lot of citizens is that these corporations are buying the houses up. They have problems. They're bought by group members of however many makes up an LLC, and then they can't never get in touch with who actually owns the house to make the repairs or cut the grass, and that turns into a codes issue. Or you got a barking dog and you never can find an owner. So yeah, I agree with you. That's something that needs to be looked into, and I think that we're trying to do our due diligence on that.
Isn't it at that point a business instead of a residence? I mean, if you look at how houses are zoned, single-family residence, doesn't that cross over some line at some point? It's not really a residence anymore, it's a business. I mean, it's just an apartment complex, just a small.
Under zoning, it's still a residential use because it's still a family living there under our zoning definition. It's just who owns the property. Unfortunately, state law, we don't have ability to say who can own property.
Charge this man 40% of assessed value, and the guy living in that house 25. Why doesn't the rental guy have to pay 40?
It's just the way the taxes are structured. Any more? We're going to come up the tables. Anybody wants to come up, look at the maps? And these maps, what they represent is what's on our current comprehensive plan and all our current zoning. So it's kind of our baseline we're going through. So their goals have a revised map. But yeah, come up, make comments, draw on them. We'll be around to answer any questions. But